You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market. From unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts Uncle Mike TOSAW from RCM Asset Management, Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionFit.com, and Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionFit.com. The Option Block is brought to you by Fidelity Investments. Fidelity's Option Trade Builder tool can help you confidently build an options trade in 3 simple steps. Just choose a strategy, select a contract, and then review the benefits and risks of the trade. Learn more about Option Trade Builder at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. It's that time once again, for the old OB, a.k.a. the Option Block, a.k.a. our Halloween Spooktacular, though this year you might be confused. You might think it's our Christmas Spectacular or something like that. The weather we're having right here in Chi-Town, multiple inches of snow coming down on us on Halloween. I'm not ready for that. I'm not in the mindset for that. I'm still wrapping up the tail end of FIA week here in Chicago. I'm not ready for the snow and the Yule logs and the Christmas trees and all that craziness just yet. But you know what? The weather doesn't wait for me. The weather does what it does. It's driving a whole bunch of stuff, including nat gas and some energy. We'll get to that a little bit later on TWIFO. But now it is time for the good old OB. Let me introduce my all-star fellow panelists here on the program today. Let's start with the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Mike TOSAW. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the program. How much snow you guys getting out there, sir?
I got a couple inches. It's kind of crazy out here. It's I have to say that snow in October, even in the Midwest, is kind of a rarity. But I can never remember going trick-or-treating in the snow as a kid, so this will be a first for me.
I think they've already said this is the snowiest Halloween on record here in Chicago. So there you go. Global warming for the win. All right, and also joining us, let's see if they've got snow where he is, Mr. TREY JARRELL, holding down the active trader hot seat over there in the land of Fidelity. Mr. Last Dad of Krypton, first off, how is your Jarrell costume this year? Is it looking good? And then B, you guys getting hit with the snow out there as well?
Not quite snowing in Florida here yet.
Haven't hit that level yet? Jacksonville, not 5 inches of snow?
It's kind of the opposite. We're all complaining about trick-or-treating today because it's going to be 90 and it might be a little rough for us all outside, huffing and puffing and sweating. But, on the Halloween front, I tried my best to get my son to be Superman this year so I could really have a good story for the show, but couldn't quite talk him into it. So I'll have to try again next year.
What's he going as? What's the costume du jour?
He's going to be a bat, and that's not Batman.
Not Batman, just a bat. All right, he went halfway. He went halfway down the superhero routes. He's getting there. A little bit at a time. And you know who's already fully there is at least the youngest son here of the greasiest of meatballs, Mr. Mark Sebastian. Mr. Meatball, welcome back, sir. It's been a while since you've had you on the old OB. How go things in this snowiest of Halloween, sir?
It's really good to be back. I've been missed being able to do this show, and my schedule's cleared up, so hopefully I'm going to get back to doing the show once a week. Halloween's been great. Getting ready for – I've seen my 3-year-old's Halloween parade, and then I get to go out in the snow and watch my 9-year-old's Halloween parade. So
I did that this morning as well. Thankfully, they moved it indoors like civilized folks. But really quickly, because it is so funny, regale our audience. What is your 3-year-old going as for Halloween this year?
So my son Valentino is actually dressed as Karl Lagerfeld of the House of Chanel fame.
I love it.
And Mark, I sent Mark a picture, and it's on Twitter. So if you're listening or you want to see the show notes, Mark, you have my permission to include that pic because it is stinking hilarious.
It is pretty funny. I'm looking. I wish I could see the faces of his 3-year-old fellows and classmates when they're looking at him. Like, who are you?
Well, they're all like Woody. They're all they're Toy Story or dinosaurs, and in comes Karl Lagerfeld.
I just love it.
I mean, the hilarious thing is the teachers. So we dropped him off. Teachers were like, we were trying to figure out what he was because he just turned 3 a month and a half ago. So he's still not completely grasped the English language, so they could not fully understand what he was saying, and they eventually figured it out. But he can tell us he doesn't want to do something clear as day, but everything else can't get it out.
Well, we can get on with it too here. Right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
And I encourage everybody, if you're not doing so, follow the Greasy Meatball over there at Option Pit on the old Twitters, and you too can enjoy these fun little nuggets to brighten up your day, like his 3-year-old son, masquerading as a fashion icon. It's great. All right. What is great? Now it's not great today, unfortunately. I guess it depends which side of the market you're leaning on, whether it's great or not for you. But for the bulls and for the Uncle Mike crowd, not so much. Of course, I'm talking about a lot of red on the screen today out there in markets land. Most of the major indices firmly in the red today. We've got the Dow actually swapping places with the NASDAQ today, leading the charge to the downside today, off about 0.75%. S&P, once again, the Goldilocks right there in the middle, about 0.2% to the downside. And NASDAQ, a little more than a third off to the downside. A rare moment of quiet in the NASDAQ land. Of course, seeing gold up a little bit. Oh, and crude oil off a bit. Below that 55 handle again in WTI, 54 and change over there. We'll get to that, of course, in a little bit out there in TWLO land. Of course, all that red on the screen means green on the vol screen. VIX cash ticking back up after hanging out there for a little bit out there in the 12 handle. Let's see, how low do we get? How low do we go in limbo land? We got down to 1243 in the VIX cash before rebounding about 1.5 exactly right now. So threatening that 14 handle again, which I like to see for my crystal ball prediction. Maybe not for my overall trading prediction, but for my crystal ball prediction, I like to see that. So we got a day or so. We'll see what comes to pass out there. But let's go back out. Speaking of the vol space, Mr. Meatball, we'll start there. What's on your radar on this period where it looked like for a while there, Mr. Amberson's pretty aggressive 12 handle even was coming to pass, and then now crazier heads are prevailing out there in vol land yet again, sir?
There's a lot going on today, right? Tons going on. We got questions about China. We got a ton of earnings that came out. We have non-farms coming out. You have yesterday the VIX was back in the 12s, and today it's up 10% to 1360, right back above 13. Where to next?
And I know how much it pains you to say that percent of a percent. So well done. So that was for our listeners.
Yes. Really, the stories I'm really watching are Apple and Facebook. And then, one of the debates that we're having internally at Option Pit, actually, the stock's not moving that much, but is with Twitter, and that is, does them refusing political ads, like, do they have the dollars and the ad revenue to basically tell an entire industry that they're not interested in their business?
Yeah, that was a bold choice for a company that's not making a lot of money to turn away what they do have. That was a pretty bold choice. I will say that.
Yeah, so you have to ask yourself, is that a short-term loser, long-term gain, or is that just a long-term loser, right? Because, you look at TV stations, for instance, they borderline rely on political ads during every other year. And so I'm very interested in whether it ends up being something that works out well for them. On one hand, you've got that loss of revenue, but then the other question is, does not taking political ads help them create a better environment for the readers and for their users? And does that help them explode their user base? And if that is the case, then, maybe that's a long-term win. I don't know if you want my thoughts, but I will say that that has definitely, kind of been the internal debate at Option Pit.
Yeah, it wouldn't be as much of a big deal. Facebook coming out, at least it'd be a big deal from a reach perspective, but not from a bottom line perspective. They can kind of shrug that off and still be doing all right. But Twitter has been struggling for a long time to find its niche in the online ad selling space. Buying followers, it's always seemed like a weird proposition. And is that really valuable? And all these other things, and promoting tweets, that they've struggled for a long time to kind of find where they fit in that. So for them to come out and say, hey, there's an entire vertical here we're just not going to service, that was kind of interesting. They're making a stand. Whether you agree with it or not, you have to at least applaud their willingness to put their money, or their lack of money now, where their mouth is out here. Mr. Trey, is Twitter lighting it up over there in Fidelity Land? And what else is catching your eye in this surprisingly interesting end to the week here over at Fidelity, sir?
Twitter is definitely on the list. Facebook, Apple here as well. We'll touch on those. Twitter is interesting. Came up 7th on the list of orders by Fidelity customers here today. And, a lot of times it seems not too uncommon to see the Fidelity group take kind of the contrarian type of view. Twitter, obviously coming down a little bit in price here recently. But Fidelity customers were buying that news today at about 70% of orders that came through on the buy side versus 30% on the sells. So, maybe an interesting perspective from that side. Notice pretty heavy on the call side from the option statistics today, about a 3-to-1 call put ratio. But absolutely interesting, story here. We'll see how it pans out in the long term. The one that came in at number one here today, though really the most active name right now, was actually Facebook here today. So no surprise with the earnings, up about $3.70 as it stands here right now. Fidelity customers were taking an opportunity to maybe sell a little bit here today. Just over 60% of orders here on Facebook were from the sell side on Facebook. And looking at this, overall, earnings news positive, right? Beat their earnings per share number here. Revenue above forecast. Average revenue per user came in a little bit higher than forecast. And initial jump was very positive. The level that it hit here today, right around 198, 199 range, was right where we were at after the Q1 earnings. We had that big spike up right at the same level where it pulled back. So I thought it was kind of interesting. We hit that level here earlier today, pulling back here since then on this one, and kind of jumping right back into that range that this was in for quite a while after the previous drop from the Q2 earnings. But option market in Facebook here, ton of volume here today, just over 500,000. So maybe no surprise there. Usually does about 200,000 on 90-day average, so big numbers there. And of that, a lot of activity on the call side, about 326,000 calls versus 176,000 puts here. So the other one, no surprise, that would be in the top 10 here today. Apple also with the earnings here yesterday, up about $4.50 on this one. Fidelity customers were kind of dead split on Apple, right at 50-50 buys and sells today. So some taking it as an opportunity, maybe some taking profit off the table. Keep in mind this jump up today doesn't quite get it to all-time highs, right? It's at 247.80. Hit all-time highs earlier this week at 249.75. So that's kind of the next level we're paying attention to, right? See if it can, reapproach and push through those highs or not. So we'll keep an eye on that one here. But the trend on Apple, as we all know, right, been fairly strong here. Continues to push higher highs, right? Had the beat on the earnings per share number. Beat on revenue. The only disappointing number it seemed like was that iPhone sales, but seem to be making up for it in other areas with the iPad and the AirPods here as well. So interesting. But option market today too, pretty split on Apple calls and puts, almost even here right now, but about 700,000 contracts traded today. So another big day on Apple. But last one I wanted to bring up. So one that doesn't pop up too often, but actually, even with everything going on with the bigger companies and earnings today, was TWLO that actually popped up at number 3, and a rough report here for them. Had wider than expected losses here. Stock right now is down about 12 points, right at 95.68 here. So a little bit of a rough earnings announcement to say the least. Option market was looking at around a $9 move on this one, so came well outside of that mark here. But Fidelity customers were taking an opportunity again, kind of be that contrarian big sell-off, using it as an opportunity to buy. We've got about 70% coming from the buy side here on TWLO. From the chart though, been pretty ugly here recently, right? Hit highs in around July. Since then, kind of the steady decline, broke through all of its moving averages. Last one here broke through that 200-day back in September. So continuing to push to lower levels here, getting it back to really level hasn't seen since the very beginning of 2019, right about where the stock started. So big run up, kind of pulled all the way back here on that one. But that one doesn't come up too often here on the list. Kind of interesting with all the news, seeing that come through as number 3 here today. But that's what popped up on our list here of orders by Fidelity customers. So that's what we had here from our side today.
Thank you for that, Mr. Last Data. Krypton, one day your son will join you, and he shall be Superman. Then you can truly have the mystifying Jarrell costume. You look like Marlon Brando. How do you go with that one? That's an interesting one to go for. I'll let you figure that out for yourselves. While we move on out to that sleepiest of hamlets where they're apparently shoveling out the snow like the rest of us, St. Charles. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, Apple's lighting it up. Not so much in the bearish category for the broad market today, so not all of your things are lighting it up out there, but still a few things going on in your neck of the woods. What's lighting up your tape this week, sir?
Well, I think what's happening right now is we're getting a little bit of like a later reaction to the fact that we have a Fed that is lowering rates when markets are at all-time highs. And I think that kind of spooks the market a little bit, and that the initial reaction we had yesterday was higher, but now it seems like we're selling off a bit. Now, I'm excited from this standpoint as a trader in that now we actually have a new all-time high that is somewhat significantly higher than the 3,000 mark. So I'm excited from that standpoint. Now, 3,000 could act as a point of of support if need be, and the resistance could be the all-time high. So that's something that I'm excited about at this stage. The other point of note today, we do have some rallying in silver, up approximately 1% on the day, as well as gold, also up about 1%, both of them a little bit under 1%. But where we're getting a little bit of a pullback, though, down roughly 1%, is in the financial area, with XLF being down 28 cents in comparison to, the broad market, which is down roughly 0.5%. So with it, there's a lot going on right now. We have a Fed announcement in the middle of earnings. It's definitely an interesting market. The fact that we have the earnings that we have coming up, excited to see what happens in this marketplace. But with all that being said, I think the main thing that needs to be mentioned is that make sure that you are a protective trader at first, and that you're managing risk and not getting too excited about a minor pullback at the all-time highs like right now, as I may or may not be. But also with that, in doing so, make sure that you manage your risk and that you have the ability to make money should the market go up as well. It's a fine line to walk, but that's the fun of trading.
That is the fun of trading. Fun of trading is also coming out during earnings season, as Uncle Mike alluded to. A lot of big names popping off here this week. Let's get to a few of them. Of course, earlier this week, there was Beyond Meat, good old Alphabet, a.k.a. Google. Wednesday, of course, Apple and Facebook and Lyft driving a lot of interest. Starbucks as well. Today, before the bell, we had WWE actually coming out before the bell. Funko and Pinterest after the bell. Alibaba, Chevron, Exxon. So let's pull up WWE really quickly because they're taking a whooping, I think is the technical term. A bit of a smackdown on WWE, if you will. I can go on forever. But yeah, this stock has not looked at these levels, not seen these levels in quite some time. It was trading, back mid to late summer, it was trading about $100. And it hit 53.5 today, down $13 or nearly 20%. Apparently, they've had some inabilities to secure additional deals out of the Middle East, something along those lines. Whatever it is, the market not liking what they're seeing out there in WWE. If you want to see what's going on with this name and a bunch of others, the place to go is, of course, theoptionsinsider.com. Click on that Options News and Articles tab. You'll see some recently updated, brand new earnings move and earnings move results reports, courtesy of our friends over there at ORAS. Let's pull up WWE really quickly just to see what they were pricing in. At the time of this report, which was a day or two ago, they were trading 68 1/3, so they were quite a bit higher than they are right now. And they were pricing in a whopping $3.13. So yeah, they outperformed it by about 4x to the downside. In the past, they've moved about 370. So either way you cut it down here, this one has blown the doors off to the downside. So perhaps not the way you want to look. We also have earnings move and earnings move results reports for some big names that reported this week. Let's start with Facebook. They were, of course, after the bell yesterday. They were, at the time they closed, 188 1/4. They were pricing in, 980, and they delivered 280. Let's see where they are right now. Let's see if they delivered some of that back in today. So let's say dramatically under, they moved up a total of 430 today, about 2 1/3%. So it looks like dramatically underperforming what they were pricing in. They came in 71% below what the market was pricing in here. Wow, that's an impressive bunch of nothing, especially given the fact that they've been taking some heat, been under some fire of late. Of course, any week seems like Facebook has taken some heat, but it's been a particularly onerous one. Of course, the Twitter issue coming to light of late, Zuckerberg getting grilled. So all of this not really contributing to a lot of drama, at least on the earnings front, which I guess for the bulls out there in Facebook land is perhaps not a bad thing. Looks like they actually had a bit of a pretty strong rally. They actually got up on the open to 196. Actually, I take that back. In the gap up from the open, they gapped up about 8 handles. They went from 188 1/4 to looks like 196 and about a half, so a little over $8 out there. So I guess in that brief blip, you had a quick window. It was very quick, very short-lived, listeners, to try to get some of that long premium off before it kind of went away. But within a few minutes, it was trading 192 3/4. So it's pretty much where it is right now. It's kind of been vacillating on this level ever since. So you had that ever briefest of moments if you were long some premium out there to get rid of it, and now not so much, it seems like. Apple, let's go on to Apple. They also were popping off after the bell yesterday. It's been a weird one, as Trey kind of alluded to. Their biggest market, the iPhone, is kind of receding, but they're working hard diligently. You got close to $250 billion in cash. You can spend some money to try to build new markets like they're doing with the streaming and everything else, and the watch and these new the AirPod Pros and all these other expensive peripherals. So apparently that's working. That's keeping the street happy. Apple today, well, before we get to that, let's see. They're coming into the report. They were at 243 1/4. They were pricing in, juicy 9.10 or so. They actually delivered $1.50 in their straddle there. So they underperformed their straddle by 84%. Bit of a theme here for this week's, or I should say this cycle really, is last cycle outperformed dramatically. When we see that a lot, we see people tend to widen things out a little bit on the earnings straddle front, and as a result, a lot of names under-deliver. Right now, Apple has moved a bit more. They've moved about 4.5 handles. That puts them up nearly 2%. So interesting stuff here as a result. But yeah, we're nowhere near enough to offset this, shall we say, pretty juicy straddle that they were pricing in, at least compared to other recent names. Lyft, really quickly too. Lyft they were trading 44.11. They were pricing in about $3, and they got about $3. So not exactly a big surprise there. Let's see where they are right now. Of course, it doesn't want to give it to me. There we go. Off about 230, so a little bit less. Right now, 42 and change. So those are some big names. You have a ton of them, literally hundreds of these names. You can go search for yourself over there. TheOptionsInsider.com. Let's do a real quick rundown of what's lighting it up today. Trade did a lot of this already. We'll go to the indices really quickly. VIX actually pretty active today, as you might expect, given a lot of back and forth in the broad markets and a lot of red on the screen. About 250,000 contracts on the tape as of a few minutes ago. So that puts it well north of half of their ADV, which is a little bit north of 400,000. SPY at nearly 2 million contracts, about 1.75 million. ADV about 3 million. SPX closing in on 1 million contracts as well. Their ADV is 1.3 billion. So the S doing some paper out there today. The Q's 427,000 contracts to ADV 671, and the Russell AK at IWM also closing in on 250,000 contracts. The ADV out there 392,000. Let's go to the most active equity options as well, really quickly. Top 10 exactly 100,000. To break into the top 10 today, and that would be Uber, taking the top 10 spot. Number 9, Baba, 109,000. Number 8, GE, $1.18 on the tape. Number 7, MPC. This is not a name that comes across my radar very often. This is Marathon Petroleum. Yes. 128,000. Number 6, good old TOSAW with 134,000. Number 5, Twitter, $1.53. Number 4, Bank of America, 220,000. Number 3. Perennial top 3 or top 5, or at least usually AMD, 329,000, I should say today. So that normally would get you to number 1, but not today. Not with Facebook and Apple on the rampage. Facebook, a little bit north of 500,000 contracts out there, and Apple number 1 with a bullet, as Tradus mentioned earlier, 705,000 contracts on the tape today. Surprisingly equal, as you mentioned, 51% calls, 49% puts. That's kind of funky. Facebook and AMD both tied 65% on the call side. Looks like the most biased paper is actually Twitter. 75% of that 153,000 contracts coming on the call side of the ledger. But now it's time for us to go, at least to keep on going, right on into the odd block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by TheOptionsInsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
Let's get weird. Let's get wild. Let's get whimsical. Mr. Meatball, put on your weird paper pants, because it is time for the Odd Block. I said that. You probably have some very fashionable paper pants lurking around, the fashionista that I know you are, sir. All right, let's go out here to our first name. Again, these are kind of fun ones. It's coming across our radar right now, so we haven't had a chance to really sink our teeth into them. We save it for the show here. We kind of do it live with you guys here. Let's see. Our first name here is not a name we talked about, at least to my knowledge, before. I would remember this name. This is Sandstorm Gold Limited, ticker symbol SAND, S-A-N-D. Trading today, $6.94, up about 60 cents, or nearly 10%. This is the name that's had an interesting, pretty much strong upside year here. A year ago, it was trading pretty much a little more than half of where it is right now. It was trading about $3.67. And it's had a nice, long, slow upside move pretty much the entire year. It topped out very quickly at $6.82, close to where it is right now, back in July, then sold off again down to about $5.60 again, kind of vacillated around there for a little bit before in the last couple of weeks really roaring back up to life, including the big pop today here to the upside. Let's see what our Eye of Sauron. I'm going to look at this and say probably, go out on a limb and say probably somebody gobbling up some calls. That just seems to be what we see on these kind of cheapy names that are having a big move. And that does appear to be the case here for what we saw with our Eye of Sauron today. It's a decent amount, 17,500, one of the larger prints we saw going up today in a single name here, of the D4s, going up for a whopping $2.90. Wow, that's a meaty one here on the old. I'm just going to keep looking while we see to make sure there's no other rolling paper or anything that went up along those lines. Let's pull it up really quickly here. No, it does not appear to be the case. That's just that one. Yeah, I think next closest trade were the 6 calls in November for 850. So no rolling. This is pure opening and not rolling from anything else. D4 is going up for $2.90. This one, actually, you know what? This one's kind of tight. It was $2.85 at $3, so it could have been actually a bit of an override here, coming off a nickel off the bid. That probably would make a little bit more sense here, I guess, if you're looking meaty call overrides. This one certainly does fit the bill. They have earnings, but not before this one announces. The next earnings are in February 18th. Mr. Meatball, bit of a weird one to kick it off, which is appropriate for the odd block. Looks like at first blush like it might be some call love, but it seems like it might be an override here of a very meaty call here in Sandstorm Gold, sir. What does your spidey sense tell you about this one?
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is somebody who's been long the stock that is using these calls to try and get out of it, or if if there's something kind of interesting going with that, because $2.90, it's basically a $6.90 sale, which is about where it's trading. So you have to ask yourself, is it someone just trying to get out of the stock? Is it someone trying to get a nickel of premium out of it that's expecting it to go, get called away? Seems like a lot of work for that. There's definitely some sort of stock play involved. My guess is that this involves either an overwrite or an exit. I don't see stock specifically with it. Let me see if there is on the underlying. Let me see if I can find anything really large that would go, because this would be, I do see 1.75 million of these stock trading for the price of $6.90.
Well, there you go.
So this
funny how that works.
Interesting, right? This is some sort of borrow trade. My guess, where they're doing 2 of the 3 legs to get long the stock, and that's kind of my best guess. But that would be what I think is going on here.
Yeah, whenever you see something
is some sort of someone's. Don't be surprised if a little birdie makes this thing maybe go hard to borrow or something like that. It's also interesting that it was done in December, so there's some sort of stock borrow, stock replacement going on here that maybe was not in the past. That's my best guess.
Yeah, usually when we see something going up this meaty on such a cheap name, there probably is a stock leg. Very rarely does it line up so neatly 1-to-1 like that. That's just a gift from the gods right there. Usually it's some ratio and it's untied, and none of it makes a heck of a lot of sense on first blush. This time it makes it a lot clearer. So thank you for that, trading gods out there. But yeah, clearly some interesting stuff afoot. They had earnings yesterday after the bell here, so this is kind of a post-earnings blush. Interesting one, too. They would choose these, but it makes some sense from that perspective, particularly with that underlying leg. Let's go on out here to our next name. If cheapy stocks are the order of the day for you today, listeners, we got you covered. Next up, we've got Valaris PLC. This is an offshore drilling contractor headquartered in London, in case you're wondering where they're based. Trading today, or ticker symbol, I should say, VAL, V-A-L. This one trading today, $4.16, off about 40 cents, or about almost 9%. This is the name that's had a tumultuous year, I think, to put it mildly here. It was trading a lot more about a year ago. It was trading nearly $18. And it stayed there for a while, and things were looking pretty rosy. Then it kind of just took a nice dip to the dark side starting in late April. By mid-June, it was trading $6, so it lost a good portion of it. Was trading 17 and a quarter in the end of April. By mid-June, it was trading $6.62. So it came off quite a bit in that span. Then it kind of rallied a little bit up to almost $10 again in July, trying to get a little bit of a lift, but it was short-lived. So back off again. By mid-August, it was trading $3.89, so south of where it is right now. So a rough start to the year here for Valaris, and it's kind of been vacillating. Got back up to over $7 again, almost $8 back in mid-September. It seemed like maybe it had some life again. Then it sold right back off again, down to 4.25 in October. I mean, it's kind of where it is, where we find ourselves right now again, right around 4.16 or so out here. So a rough year here for Val. It's been a rough year out there in the commodity markets in general. It's people have been saying for a while, what's it going to take to give crude, WTI, and these products, what's it take to give them a lift? The Saudi attack was barely a blip. We were talking about on TWLO last week how 5% of the global crude production wiped off the map, and the bid for those calls lasted about half a session. Didn't even last a full session before people started coming in to crush that upside in WTI. So it's a strange one. It cannot catch a bid, and it seems like Val feeling some of the downside of that this year. Let's see what the options market had up its sleeve today, though. It was the DEES 5, so it seemed like a similar theme. DEES cheapy stock calls to our last one. This one looks like an override as well. Surprisingly tight market on these DEES 5s because they're out of the money calls in a month or so out. They were 25 cents at 30, so decently tight. They went up almost 10,000 times on the bid there for 25 cents. There's another one that is post-earnings. They just had earnings. Let's see exactly when those earnings were. Earnings up to the bell yesterday for them as well. So very similar to our last name. This is opening over there on the old C2. Don't hear a lot about C2, but getting a print up there on the C2. Mr. Meatball, seems like a similar theme. Someone taking some cash off the table to the tune of a quarter this time, not nearly $3, and doing it about 10,000 times here in another cheapy call name, this time in Val, sir.
Well, what I'll say is that a quarter doesn't sound like a lot, but that's a pretty decent yield for relative to the stock price. So I get why someone would do that.
Yeah, this one far less mysterious, I think, than our other one. A quarter on a stock that's not even $5, 4 and change. that's not a bad little chunk of change, pun intended, between now and D's expiration. That one I should mention also is short sale restricted, so that obviously comes into play there as well. Let's go on to our last name and see if we can break the cheapy call trend here. Kind of, not quite as cheap, but cheaper. And we're not so much in the natural resources anymore, but we're going out instead here to ArcelorMittal, ticker symbol MT. This is $14.72 stock, off about 4% today, about 62 cents. This is a multinational steel manufacturing corp. If you're curious, headquartered in Luxembourg. There you go. Let's see. What do we see out here? Well, first, let's look at the year that was out here. A year ago, like I said, it's trading shy of $15 now. A year ago, it was trading about 25 and change. So a fair bit north of where it is right now. Another one had a bit of a tumultuous year. Sold off from there down to about 19 3/4 and right in the beginning of the new year, starting the new year, January 3rd. Then it rallied a bit again up to 23, almost 24 in February. It kind of vacillated in this range of about 24 on the upside to about 20 on the downside. That lasted until about May. Then it broke it to the downside middle May. May 7th, actually, it broke 20, and then it never kind of looked back, got down to about 14 3/4, which is actually 14.72, which is exactly where it is right now. Again, that was back on May 31st, and then it kind of bounced around in this range up to 17 and down to about 13 on the downside, back up to 17, back up to down 13. It's been doing that back and forth a few times over the last few months. Was very recently, as going into earnings, was threatening 16 again, and then pretty much lost all of that post-earnings here, back down to 14.72, which is where we find ourselves today. Let's see what we find on the options tape that may add some insight into this. It was, let's see, these are weeklies, actually, not going out to D's. These are the no calls expiring on the 8th, so playing in the weeklies here, and these are the 15 halves, going up 6,658 times, for a whopping 21 cents. These are pretty tight as well, 19 cents at 21. Good to know you can get some tight markets in these little cheapy names out here. These calls, obviously, not quite $1, about 80 cents out of the money here. So near-term, weekly, out-of-the-money calls. This is opening over there on the Philly. Mr. Meatball, a little bit of flip of the script here. Looks like someone wants some nice upside pop here and wants it in the next week or so here in everyone's favorite MT.
Yeah, well, they actually have a steel mill right on the other side of Wolf Lake if you're going over the Skyway. So when you get that, you get that nice waft as you leave from of exhaust as you leave Chicago and enter Gary, Indiana. That is, in fact, the ArcelorMittal steel mill, which was formerly Inland Steel. I believe. And no, they are seeing a lot of activity. They have, as you said, they have earnings next week, and a lot of upside betting. There's 2,500 of the Nov 8 15s and almost 9,400 of the Nov 15 and a halves. A lot of this saying, hey, guess what? Steel looking pretty strong. We like steel to look good, and that could in fact be the case. But so definitely a bullish play on the steel mills.
Yeah, I neglected to point out that they do have earnings on the 7th, so the day before these options expire. Some people coming in to play for some size. Tell you what, even though our cup overfloweth here, we'll add these to our to-be-watched category as well. We'll come back to these, see how our friend here fared in good old MT. Meanwhile, though, it's time to see how you guys fare with a little bit of the old Thursday mail block.
It's time to take your seat on the All-Star panel as we read your emails, tweets, Facebook messages, website comments, and much more. It's time for the Mail Block.
All right, let's dive into it, listeners. Your questions, your comments. I'd like to kick things off on Thursday with a Fidelity question of the week. See what the clients, the folks, the crew over there at Fidelity, what people have on their minds when they're calling up the desk. Mr. Last Data Krypton, I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to guess that folks these days over there calling up the desk probably have earnings-related trades on their brain. So what would you say, sir, is your Fidelity question of the week this week, sir?
Yeah, so had one pretty decent one. Usually comes up quite a bit on earnings, but I think we had just kind of this perfect storm with both Apple and Facebook yesterday with these up inside moves. And the question that we've had probably about 10 times so far today is these maybe first-time or new option traders that bought some calls on Apple or Facebook, come in, see the announcements up, have high hopes, look and say, I'm not making any money here on these calls. So the question is, what's happening, right? What gives? What's going on here? And, for those clients, it is, maybe a good lesson, here at this point to have. We have to keep in mind, there's a couple of different components that influence our option price. Price is one of them, but the other factors are volatility and time. And an earnings announcement, we're specifically focusing on that volatility crush, right? After this announcement, volatility falls off on these options. So it's not enough to be right on price. We have to be right enough on price to make up for that loss in volatility. But, really the important takeaway, here is this is something that I always encourage. Think about this on the next earnings announcement. Hey, before you put that trade on, look through some of the past announcements. Look to where implied volatility is dropped. Throw that into a pricing calculator, right? We've got one here at Fidelity. They're out there everywhere. Good practice to do. Hey, if you get the move you're expecting, incorporate that volatility crush and see where it see where that lies from a profit or loss standpoint. So, pretty basic one today, but thought it was worth mentioning here with both Apple and Facebook kind of falling in that short upward range here, and maybe some people trading those not used to that vol crush here, so getting kind of that first taste of it here on this one.
Thank you for that, sir. Let's see what else we got outside of the Fidelity hot seat. Clee, nice happy comment from Clee. Get a little bit of love here. Says, happy Halloween to the Option Block All-Stars. Never miss a show. Well, thank you, Clee. We love you guys. We love all of you out there. We're just a big love fest here on the old program. Let's see. Let's go to this one from Cannoneer. Cannoneer. Interesting spelling to it, but Cannoneer, I think, wants to know. This is kind of interesting. We've touched on this theme a little bit on a couple of the shows over the last week or so. Obviously, it's the big story. Do you guys think the elimination of commissions will change the way people trade options? Mr. Uncle Mike, let's go out to you first, sir. First off, you can speak directly. Is this impacting you guys at all? Are you guys starting to think, maybe iron flies are back on the table or anything along those lines? And then B, do you think it's going to change the way people start trading their options, sir?
I think it was just basically a nice Christmas present to have. In terms of options, I mean, option commissions are still there, so that does exist along those lines. And with the deals that we've had, I mean, it's had no effect on our option commissions with the brokers we use. And it also, for stocks, I mean, we do trade stock, but it's not enough for any significant amount of reduction on it. The one thing that I could see happening, though, is that I did have one client that just called me like the day after it happened, and she's like, I just bought one share of this stock, and then I sold it right away just because I can, just having some fun with it. And so I think that could happen, things like that. People that may not have wanted to get into quite as frequent of trading before, they now can. So let's say you wanted to be a stock swing trader and you didn't have quite a large enough account to justify paying the $5-7 commission or whatever it was, depending on what broker you were at. Now the big name brokers are now commission free. I could see something like that happening. And with the difference that you're not going to get, let's say you don't get quite as good of a fill as you did before. For someone who's trading a smaller account, that's not going to be that much of a difference, if indeed that is the case even at all. But I think that where it's going to change things is just just with the smaller sized clients. With a large money, if I'm trading a multi-million-dollar account, tenths of pennies matter on fills, and so I'd actually rather pay a broker $50 to get me the absolute best fill. But if I'm just a retail trader and I have less than $100,000 in my account or something along those lines, and I think it will make a difference.
I like that your client is just slinging one lot, not even one lot option, one lot stock, just to do it, just willy nilly, just living in defiance of all commissions out there. Mr. Meatball, you guys play with a lot of the bleeding edge of the trading side. Have you noticed any changes to their trading or trading patterns in the wake of this move to zero commission? So obviously I should say options still have that 65 cent a contract charge, but shall we say lower commissions when it comes to options?
No. And, one of the things we always tell our clients is work to get the best deal you possibly can and then stop worrying about commissions. Nobody that we work with really makes that a primary part of what they do. I see Mike's idea in terms of how it could be good for the really small client, the really small trader, in terms of stock. But from an options perspective, it's had zero effect, and I don't foresee it having any long-term effect. As I said, I think the last time we had this discussion, the only thing this really changed is it in terms of you as the user, if there was any doubt who owns your order, that's been taken away. You no longer own your order. And so make sure you're checking those user agreements because expect them to slowly be adding in all the language about what kind of information about you they're allowed to sell to Citadel and Susquehanna.
Yes. Mr. TREY, you could probably speak to this directly because you're talking to the clients all day long. Have you noticed a change from them, A, in how they're trading, and B, to the spirit of the question, do you think this will change things going forward?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, really, the main reason is, if we think about the progression of commissions, it's slowly year after year been driving down and driving down. So, this last, change going from, what we offered here, $4.95 plus 65 cents a contract, you're losing the $4.95. So, for anyone that's been trading options significantly, wouldn't make it's definitely like, Uncle Mike said, nice Christmas present, right? Nice to have that, a little bit of savings here, especially if you're trading very actively. It adds up, but probably isn't going to change the way you've traded. You probably already gone past that. I would say definitely the order flow thing is something that traders should be paying attention to, though. Here in this environment, right? Where's the broker sending your order? Here at Fidelity. For stocks and ETF trades, we're still not accepting payment for order flow. So still doing our best to try and get the best possible fill, but absolutely something you should be paying attention to. Where are my orders being routed? Am I getting the best possible price? That's going to be a big difference maker. I think it'll be interesting to see some of the little traders, though. This, maybe give some people an opportunity to jump back in. Hey, maybe, I didn't want to do too much trading here, but, now that I can, do it with no cost. Let me dip my toes into it. So you might see a few more people gaining interest over time.
Yeah, well said, sir. And looking here, it looks like our consumer listening to the show, he's chiming in on the Fidelity question of the week about buying calls on Apple and Facebook and losing money. He says, the premium you paid was too high. Yes, I agree. He goes on to clarify. He says, in other words, you've been Volsmashed post-earnings. Yes, that is pretty much what happens. What happens now is we keep on rolling to our final segment. It is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right. The man said it. This is where we tell you what we're watching. Let's start in the land of the meatball. Mr. Meatball, sir, what are you watching for the rest of this week until at least we can gather together again on Vol Views tomorrow?
I think we have non-farm payrolls. That's going to be a big driver. They just voted to impeach. We got more earnings coming out tonight. That's going to be driving everything over the next couple of days or the next day and a half. And then I'll be interested to see whether they announce where the China phase 1 deal will be signed. I think that's going to be important.
And if folks, I know you got to hop off and bring your little fashion icon trick-or-treating soon. So if folks want to learn more, maybe they want to get texts from you throughout the day, sir, where should they go? What should they do?
Go to optionpit.com and just make sure you read our blog, go to our YouTube page, and check out everything we do. And sign up to our email list. We'll send you a free ebook, all sorts of things. But believe it or not, we saw Valentino's. I'll get my costume here posted in a second. Mark the second, and myself. I'm Billy Ray Cyrus. He's Little Mark X. So we're heading down that Old Town Road as we speak.
I thought you were going to say he was Miley for a second, and I was like, what? Oh, no, God, no.
No. Miley would have been funny. We were trying to push him to maybe go in as Pierre Balmain, but he said absolutely not. So it was unfortunate.
Good to know the man draws some lines over there. Well, go forth, enjoy your snow-laced trick-or-treating. Optionpit.com is the place to go. And let's go back around the horn to the Uncle List of Mikes. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what are you watching for the rest of this week?
I'm liking this new title of the Uncle List. I've never been called the Uncle List, so it's kind of exciting.
We like making up adjectives here on the show all the time.
It's awesome. I love it. Just watching, well, quite honestly, everything that Mark said that he's watching, I'm watching as well. So in terms of the other things that I am watching they did not mention, CNFSLV can go above the 17 mark. We did touch 17 today, so we might have a little bit of a rally going in silver. I think when we do have uncertainty and crazy things, impeachment is there right now, or they're talking about it right now, so that could be a little bit of a mover to silver. Wanting to see that and seeing where the financials go from here with this pullback with which they've had today.
And the last data, Krypton, take us home, sir. What are you watching for the rest of this week?
Yeah, a couple of earnings reports here tomorrow morning thought might be of interest. Alibaba reporting option markets looking at about a $6.80 move in that one. But, stock as of late, it's been an interesting range here. It's kind of been failing to break above this 180 points. So keeping an eye on that one here. See if it, gets some momentum. If not, right, just hovering above all of its moving averages, 50, 20 and 200 all converging a little bit lower than the current price. The other one, and Alibaba too, pretty heavy on the call side today, about 84,000 calls to 46,000 puts. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And the other one tomorrow morning too, keeping an eye on is abbvie here. So this was a stock that's had pretty strong downward trend here for quite a while in the last 2 months or so. Really reversed things, kind of pushing up stronger, finally breaking above that 200-day moving average just a couple of days ago. So, option market was looking at it was about a $2.70 move on that one. So maybe not a huge expected move, but the chart on that was kind of intriguing. Be paying attention to that one here tomorrow morning as well.
All right. There it is. There's that music, which unfortunately means we come to the end of an epic journey through the world of options. We talked a lot of fun stuff. Cheapy calls in the odd block. We went all over the place in the trading block. And back to your questions about commissions and post earnings, vol implosions. What did that listener say? You've been vol smashed. I like that. Maybe that'll be the title of our show. Vol smashed. I like it. But before we go, let's go back around the horn. You already know where to go if you want the meatball to text you all day. But let's say you want Uncle Mike to talk to you. Maybe you want him to answer the phone when you call. Maybe you want him to tuck you in the bed at night. Let's see what he can offer over there. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, if I want these things and more, where should I go? What should I do?
Go to stcharleswealth.com if you're interested in an epic sojourn in the financial world and you want to be with the uncleest of the uncleest of uncles. That would be me, Uncle Mike. stcharleswealth.com for more information if you're looking for a financial advisor.
I should mention, listeners, the tuck-in service is a premium service. That is extra. That does not come with the base service. You gotta also be in the St. Charles area, obviously, to avail yourself of that service. stcharleswealth.com is the place to go. Kick the tires and light the fires. Give Uncle Mike a call. He is the uncleest of Mikes. He'll answer that call, and maybe he'll hold your hand through these stormy, turbulent, crazy, weird markets we find ourselves in these days. And Mr. Trey, if I'm a Fidelity client, maybe I want someone to hold my hand through these markets. Where should I go? What should I do?
Yeah, head on over to fidelity.com/options. You can learn a little bit more about our options trading platform. And feel free to reach out to our strategy desk team here. If you're a Fidelity customer, we offer a number of classroom sessions here for you, additional coaching, help you get coached up on these areas such as option pricing. 877-907-4429. We'd love the opportunity to speak with you. Yeah.
There you go. Fidelity.com/options is the place to go to begin your journey. And then once you have gone there and clicked on all the requisite buttons, then you can call up a guy like the last dad of Krypton, or perhaps the last Emperor, a lot of the last guys over there, or the Song of Ice and Fire, all those guys over there, and have them hold your hand through these turbulent and crazy. Maybe you want to try some new things, like the one lots Uncle Mike was talking about with no commissions. You can do that. Head on over to fidelity.com/options is the place to go. And on behalf of the greasiest of meatballs and the uncleest of Mikes and the lastest of dads of Krypton, just to make up all the adjectives, and indeed myself, I want to thank all of you out there for downloading, streaming, and subscribing, for sending in those questions. Keep them coming. We love to hear from you. If you want a little more in your lives, we'll be back in exactly half an hour. I got Sean Smith from Footsie Russell joining me in studio. That should be fun. Talk all sorts of TWIFO. Talk some crude. Talk some good stuff. Rates, markets, energy, you name it. It'll be on TWIFO. We'll see you back here in a half an hour. Just hit next on that device of choice. Should be right there. Otherwise, we'll see you back here tomorrow, 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern for Volatility Views. Then we do it all right back again on Monday for more of the Option Block.
The Option Block is brought to you by Fidelity Investments. Fidelity's Option Trade Builder tool can help you confidently build an options trade in 3 simple steps. Just choose a strategy, select a contract, and then review the benefits and risks of the trade. Learn more about Option Trade Builder at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.